What is going on, everybody? And welcome to another roleplay review. This time, it's the trial of the century. In this roleplay, we have the characters of Fusion, courtroom NPCs, Kalo, Indon, Maestroma, and EDF soldiers. The type is dialogue and combat, and the synopsis: Fusion is placed on a podium of televised trial. He speaks his truths and unleashes hell on those who believe him to be docile and domesticated. The EDF takes losses, but ultimately manages to contain him. What's going on, everybody? That was my very bad Solid Snake impersonation. But yes, we're going to do a roleplay review for the Trial of the Century. And I'm going to first apologize that it took so long for me to get this video done. But life happens. So here we are. And I gotta say, I think I've not read a roleplay as many times as I've had to read through this one. Not because it took me a long time to really get through it, but I wanted to make sure that what I was reading, I was understanding. So, like this synopsis says, Fusion's now on trial. Having concluded his battle with the Tiger, he was sent off to the EDF. He has his meeting with Almon, and now he is on trial to answer for the crimes that he has committed. And while Fusion is the main focus of this log, he's definitely the main character of this log, I want to actually take a minute and talk about the other role players in this role play. And by role players, I mean people who are playing a role to assist the plot move forward in this log. Mostly the two that stood out, obviously Kalo, but Indon and Mistroma. And I hope I'm saying that right. If it's Maestroma, like My Sharona, then let me know. Or if it is Mistroma, I'm not sure. So do correct me in that. But Maestroma specifically stood out to me in this log because they are someone who's just kind of watching. And I feel like for a trial as prolific as this one, as big as this one, then there would be more people watching. I actually really loved that these two characters were in their homes. I think Indon's in a bar, I think, with his other Saiyan friends, and Maestroma is in a gym working out, and it's just kind of like on the TV while he's doing his exercises, and he happens to be watching it and kind of going through it, which I thought was really cool, and it really, again, builds more of the world, makes it feel more real. But one thing that Maestroma did, and it really stood out to me, is as things were heating up, as Fusion was taking his vengeance out on people, one thing that this character did, Maestroma, was that they ran out of the gym and into the city that they're at. And I don't even know if they ever really specify what city they're in, but they instantly looked for the courtroom of hey, it's going down and I need to be there to help stop this. And I said this when Yugen had his moment. I said this when Koshoro had his moment, that there are certain instances that just say, this is a heroic character. And though Maestroma was probably tier 0 at the time of role-playing this, he kind of, his character doesn't know, hey, I don't know how strong this person is, but if I can help, I'm going to do it. And he doesn't necessarily say that he's going to go stop what's going on. He just wants to get there, and he wants to help. So my hat is tipped off to you, Maestroma. That was a really cool moment in this log. And to Indon, to me, Indon, you really kind of stole the show here. And I'm going to talk about that why a little bit later. But while you were watching this with your Saiyan friends, you really kind of, I want to say, you were the audience in this, and kind of without breaking the fourth wall in character, broke the fourth wall and asked the questions that I think that the audience would ask. So I just want to give you a shout out for that. And so to the meat and the potatoes of this, for those of you who haven't read this, again, this is after the trial, or sorry, after the battle of the tiger and the wolf, and Fusion's just on trial. He is answering for his crimes, and I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions about this, and it kind of goes hand in hand to what I was saying about Indon. And my one question I would propose would be as to why, if this character is as dangerous as we know him to be, was there not better security for him? And this is not a knock at Saru, this is not a knock at Fusion the character, but I really felt like for this roleplay to be as big as it was, I would have liked two things to have happened. Two things that I know would be probably very difficult to do. But just in the realm of it like making sense, this would have made the most sense. Fusion is going to go on trial. Totally on board with that, right? Needs to have some sort of answer for what he has done, not just at Nova Sanctuary, but since the character has been out. And I would have started one with Koshoro being there, and I had to like look it up. I did some deep diving research on this particular thing, and part of the reason why I'm so behind on making this video. But I had to look up to see, like, does the arresting officer usually show up on a trial of this nature, right? If you were the person who found the mass murderer, is that officer ever really at the trial? And I feel like in this situation, I would have liked Koshoro to be there. Now, pause, edit. I know of the time constraints. Again, I've talked about it before. I know that Saru is at least 5 hours ahead of most of us and works different shifts. I know that Ike has been very busy, doing the real life stuff and helping out with, doing logs and everything like that, and just role playing in general. So I know that the time constraints would have made it difficult to do as well. But as the person who's been kind of following this story, I would have liked to have Koshoro there. I would have just really enjoyed having him there. Even if he was just kind of like, hard gazing off into the back of Fusion's head, and kind of, maybe a post or two here and there about like, man, I really hope that this guy can come around. I hope that, whatever his mind was at, and enough to like add to the story, but without, overshadowing it. I just would have liked for him to be there. That's all. And then the other thing that I would have liked for this log would have been to have somebody not really admin it, but kind of admin NPC it. And the reason for that is, again, kind of going back to where was the security for all this? Like, if Fusion is as dangerous as these people know him to be, he should have been almost like when you're releasing a wild animal back into the wild, like electric shock collars around his neck, and people, walking, like there's two on each end, and they would have some sort of way to suppress his powers. There should have been riflemen on him at all times. Like, he should have been like Hannibal Lecter, with muzzle and everything, just kind of chained up. And there really should have been no way for him to, I won't say no way for him to escape, but it should have been damn hard, right? And I would have liked to have somebody set that up. And I know, again, in this situation, Sarah did a really good job of not only setting the setting, but he NPC'd kind of for himself and kind of kept the story and plot moving. But I just kind of would have, I would have liked that, to have just one person be like, okay, I'm gonna DM this for you, and you were going to roleplay your character. And I wanted that so that Saru kind of really dug into Fusion here, because I feel like this was the time where Fusion has his time to explain to everybody, this is why I did it, right? Like if you thought that you had me now, you ain't got nothing yet, because you don't even know what my motivations are. And I still feel like we as the readers don't fully understand what his motivations for being so villainous, so villainous. I don't think that we know really what he's trying to achieve. And I think that in this log, this was the log where he could have like at least really brought it out. And I know that there is this big block of red text, right? And he says why. But this is where Fusen shines in this log, in this red text, especially in this big paragraph here, in these two. This is where he really shines in this log. And he shines in a way that proves he is a really good villain, and he's a really good villain on page. And I'm just gonna go over like a little excerpt of what he says. So it starts here. He says, I stared death in the eye and spat in its face. I alone sieged Nova's sanctuary as she slacked off and allowed hundreds of martial artists to die in her backyard. And then, when all was said and done, she gathered those mystical spheres and wished her planet back. She could have wished back your families. That's the most hilarious thing I have ever had the pleasure of hearing. A hero? She's a coward. That's what she is. She didn't even face me. That's how much that's how much more her home is more important to her than any of your dead. And while it is a dig directly at my character, I can respect the villainy of it. And I say that because what makes a good on-page, on-screen villain? It's someone that the audience hates. And I'm going to say, when I first read that, my initial reaction was, oh, you bitch. Oh, you lying son of a gun. How dare you? I will fly Nova straight to Legende and rip off your cell doors and say, 1v1 me, bro. Ooh, let's get it. And then I sat for a moment and I was like, Riz, that's what a good villain does. It makes you feel emotion. That's what good characters do. They make you feel emotions. And why did I feel that way? Because he lied. He straight up lied. And I'm not saying, like, again, these aren't digs. This is a good thing. This is a great thing that Sarah did. He said, how can I get under Nova's skin? How can I really get back at these people that put me in this situation? I'm going to make them look bad, right? And that's kind of what, and I've made this comparison again, that Fusen is very close to Garo. And in One Punch Man, Saitama's real struggle is not can he defeat the villain. It's can he defeat the negativity in people's hearts about him, right? And that's what makes him a hero. He can, in season 1, he blows up a meteor, and someone comes out and says, like, oh God, why couldn't you like truly destroy it? Like, yes, you just saved all these lives, but look at all this damage and carnage that you just did. And people are like, bah, bah. He kills a sea king that none of these other heroes can defeat. And then he goes out, does his one punch thing, and to make it seem like the system that they have works, he just says, like, oh yeah, like, all these other guys could have done it. All these other heroes that you guys love were so close. I just stole the glory. And people hate him for it. And that's what people have been attacking. People have been attacking his character and just making it seem like he's not that great. And so that's what Fusen does here, right? He Cersei Lannisters his way. He Littlefingers right here. And that's why I was like, oh, I'm so mad. But oh, they're so good. They're so good. Because, I mean, we know, like, he didn't do it alone. He was given, the rage virus was there to help out and to, make the animals go nuts and kind of sow chaos. And then when he got caught and he needed to get away, well, he was given these bombs, and he even said in some of his other logs that, like, yeah, he was suppressing his power and keeping away from Nova. And so now he's like, oh, I'm going to get in front of this thing. I'm going to jump on Twitter and I'm going to spread these lies. I'm going to get all these people to believe it. And now, I mean, there could be some real people who are like, yeah, Nova, like, why, if you're so strong, why didn't you stop him? Why didn't you wish back my folks? So that's why I was just like, freaking bravo, man. Like, that was a masterclass move. And then we get to the part of the log where I'm like, I feel like the combat part of this log we could have really done without, because I don't feel like it served a purpose other than he just wanted to beat some people up. And again, I mean, this kind of goes back to what I was saying at the very beginning. Like, there should have been no way that Fusen, and I know he just hit tier 2, but like, we have things to stop tier 2. Like, tier 2 is kind of like where everybody is the same. And in a verse that we've kind of had, like, people who hit tier 2 they're still considered superpowers, but they're not powers beyond recognition. So it may have taken everything that they had, but it should have been like, he needed something. He needed Kalo there, who I haven't talked about yet, who I didn't forget you, Kalo. Maybe somebody like flicked something but he just overpowers it in this weird, like, I'm turning really into a demon, but I'm still human. And honestly, I would tread very carefully on that line. But what I said earlier about Indon is that Indon then becomes the I would say he becomes the admin reading it, right? Because I don't think most players would read this and really care. But right off the bat, he's like, sloppy containment. Right? Sloppy containment. Like, it's almost like he's like saying, like, yeah, they weren't prepared for this guy. And they should have never done that. And like he said, what would they do against me and Nova? Right? To where there, I'm like, well, maybe Indon just doesn't know how strong this guy is because he's on Legende and he can't really sense him, so he doesn't know how strong the guy is. So that's where I was like, that's a little meta. That's a little super meta there. But yeah, I mean, he kind of was just like, yeah, they probably should have had like super max security on there, or even just did it from his jail cell. Like, hey, you're so violent, you're so uncontrollable that to prevent any more loss of life, we're just going to do this from basically your execution chamber, if that's where it's going to go. And that's where I said, like, yeah, Indon, that made me chuckle, right? Because as soon as he said that, I was like, yeah, that is kind of true. And then, as the fighting goes on again, I was like, this doesn't really add to it. Like, it's one of those where I wish I weren't reviewing this part. And I was like, I hope this was fun. Because it seemed like it would have been fun, and it definitely added to the Fusen is a true beast. It added to that story. I just don't think that, I don't personally think that it needed to be here that happened. I think that would have been better off for the breakout attempt that we should be coming, if it hasn't happened already. And the last person I want to really talk about in this video is going to be Kalo, because I was not gonna lie, I was a little disappointed that Kalo didn't really get more involved. They were there, they were in the crowd, and they did a very good job of showing the mindset of someone who is kind of enthralled by their captor. There's a word for that, and I can't think of the word, and I'm sure somebody in the comments will tell me, or somebody on the mud will tell me, where basically you empathize with the people that are mistreating you, and that's clearly on display here, because Kalo is listening to Fusen talk and empathizing with him. and saying like, yeah, he's just, it's just kill or be killed. So it's totally cool. Like, why are you guys bullying this guy? Right? Like, he just killed people. Like, what's so wrong with that? I kill people, and he almost killed me, and I love this dude. Do I love this dude? I think I love this dude. So when it broke out, I was kind of waiting for Kalo to jump into the melee and really solidify themselves, and then they could have been like, you know, cellmates or something, or across the way, or, you know, just seeing Kalo come to his defense would be, you know, maybe Fusen kind of thinks like, oh, I remember this thing, this kid-like thing that I beat up in the woods. Why is it here? Why are you following me? And then they have this kind of like, sort of like Harley Quinn Joker relationship where it's kind of symbiotic, and he's feeding off of Fusen's madness and becoming more madness. And since he's like a child but still a bioandroid, maybe he like literally imprints and starts to pick up on Fusen. So that was it. Like, I thought Kalo was good here. I just really wanted them to get involved when it all broke loose. But then towards the end, I did like the riot gear, like the dudes that came prepared and they handled Fusen. When that happened, I was like, oh, so he did have in mind, like he's not just gonna just murder his way out of here, because if that would have happened, I'd I don't know, throwing rocks at this roleplay. If he just legit murdered his way out and then like escaped an escape pod, I would have been done. So I'm glad that they reapprehended him, and now it sets up for Galvus and crew to break him out. Which Galvus's little tidbit at the end, I thought that was really cute. How he's just kind of like Iron Man 2 seeing God, what was that guy's name? What was the guy's name in Iron Man 2? The bad guy, Hammer, Justin Hammer. Kind of like watching, like, oh, hey girl, I see you breaking out. I see you. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna use you, crazy Russian dude. And I'm gonna do some. Anyway, but overall, I did enjoy the slog. Again, I had my like, this is how I would have liked to have seen it. Doesn't mean that it was bad. Doesn't mean that the slog was bad at all. In fact, it did, again, look very fun. So, guys, don't take my criticisms as negative, please. I did enjoy reading it, and because I enjoyed reading it is why it took me so long to make this video, because I did not want it to be like kind of half-assed, where I'm like super tired and just like, oh yeah, it was a log. So I wanted to really give it the love and the attention that it really needed. So I hope you enjoyed. As always, thank you for your time. My name is Riz, and I will see you guys all later. Awkward exit.